So yesterday I listened to an author talk about making practices more efficient. So he's talking about there's a German soccer team that has like a ball machine, I guess, that throws balls out at players so that they can work on passing and get more reps passing than they might be able to get during a practice. And I think this is, something that happens in every sport. I mean, in basketball, you've got the Dr. Dish and shootaways or whatever they're called, and in baseball, you have, batting cages. And so the goal typically is, well, we just need to get more repetitions. But with whenever you remove or get away from the actual game, there's a cost benefit analysis that needs to go on. So on the one end, if we only play 5-on-5 at practice every single day, nothing but 5-on-5, we might not get enough repetitions, and we may be overexerting or causing fatigue over the course of a long season. If we're playing, a 2-hour 5-on-5 scrimmage every single day in practice, we might be overdoing it from a physical or physiological standpoint. And so that may not be something that we want to do. We also may not be able to get sufficient repetitions for every single player, for every single skill, in 5-on-5 competition. So typically your posts will touch the ball less, your guards will shoot more, your post typically won't dribble as much. So if these are skills that you're trying to develop in players, you probably need something other than just 5-on-5 play to develop these skills. But as soon as we move from 5-on-5 competition, we're losing something. Okay, you can't leave the game and not lose something. So in an effort to get more repetitions in a specific skill or with specific players, we're moving away from the actual game environment. So maybe we go and play 3-on-3, so we can have more players playing at one time, more players getting touches, but we've reduced the complexity. So it's very similar to a 5-on-5 game, and you can practice all of the skills that are associated with a 5-on-5 game, but there's reduced complexity. So if a player turns the corner and is attacking the basket, there's really only one held defensive player that they have to worry about. Whereas in 5-on-5, you have to worry about that help defensive player, and then generally there's another player, that's going to be kind of, playing between the two open players, where there's less of that in 3-on-3. So you've reduced the complexity. So it's pretty close to 5-on-5, but not 5-on-5, okay, less complexity. So then, you decide, well, we're still not getting enough repetition, so we're going to move further and further from the game. And this typically happens because we want to be efficient with practice. We want to maximize the number of repetitions, whether that's by using something somewhat artificial like a batting cage or a shoot away or this soccer thing. Okay, we're just going to focus on getting the maximum number of repetitions in the minimum amount of time. And so by doing this, one, we can increase repetitions, and then two, we can potentially decrease fatigue or physiological loading. Because if we can get a player to stand in one spot and have a basketball rebound machine pass them the ball back and forth, so the player doesn't have to do any running, jumping really, we reduce the physiological load, and that means not only do we get more repetitions in that instant, but the player is probably able to do more practice than if it was a 5-on-5 competitive scrimmage for the same length of time. So that becomes a way to be more efficient with practice. But that efficiency comes with a cost, because the more that we get towards efficient practice, the less game-like that drill is going to be. So if you're playing 3-on-3, it's still fairly game-like. Okay, but again, it's less efficient than doing a shooting drill with a shooting machine in terms of getting shooting repetitions. So, doing a dribbling drill, a straight line dribbling drill, you can get a lot of repetitions, but it lacks all of the constraints of a game. So you're efficient with your practice, but you're missing out on what is probably the most important aspect of dribbling, which is what you're going to do with the ball, because dribbling is not an end in and of itself. So you have to be able to pass or shoot or create something off that dribble. And if you're just dribbling from baseline to baseline, you're missing the intention that you use a dribble for in a game. So, it's not that efficiency is bad, and there are some reasons why we want to be more efficient with practice, especially in terms of managing physiological load, and in some cases increasing the number of repetitions, especially with a beginning player. But there's definitely a cost to that efficiency, and the cost in that efficiency, okay, is removing the skill too far from the game, and so making those repetitions nothing like what happens in a game. So there's a real difference between shooting from a ball machine with a perfect pass from one area when I know exactly when I'm going to shoot, and catching the ball in a game, deciding that I'm going to shoot, having a defensive player run towards me, having movement before the shot, all of the variables that factor into shooting success during a game. And the same with hitting in a batting cage where the pitch is at a constant speed and basically a constant location. That's much different than learning to read the cues of a pitcher to be able to anticipate a pitch before it's even out of the pitcher's hands, which is going to lead to more success as a batter. So these things, again, they're fairly useful for beginners learning a skill initially, and they do increase efficiency, but that efficiency comes with a cost. And so as you're deciding how efficient practice needs to be versus how game-like or task representative the practice needs to be, there's a cost-benefit analysis that needs to be done as a coach to determine, what is the area that we need to improve, and what do our players need? Do they need primarily practice in representative situations, things that are more closely resembling the game, i.e. small-sided games, or even shooting drills that include a decision and a defensive player? Or do our players simply need repetitions regardless of whether or not those repetitions resemble anything that occurs in a game? And I think oftentimes now coaches are moving more towards being efficient with their practice and just focusing on number of repetitions and minimizing the importance of task representation. And I think that's one reason why some players have a problem transferring that practice from the practice situation to a game situation because it lacks that task representativeness. So again, the goal is not to be efficient. The goal is to transfer learning to a game situation. And sometimes that means an efficient, highly repetitive practice might work, but most of the time I think we need to be moving more along a spectrum towards task representation.